Uh-oh. Motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A question. Is Gabriella Fundora the greatest women's flyweight in history? With little doubt, whenever Gabriella Fundora walks into a boxing ring as a flyweight, she is a massive favorite. The reasons are obvious. Aside from being taller, longer, skilled, Fundora just might be the hardest punching flyweight in the history of women's boxing. When Fundora, 16-0 with 8 KOs, blasted out Mexico's Mariling Badillo, 19-1 with 1 draw and 3 knockouts last Saturday, in defense of the undisputed flyweight crown, the world saw the Southern California-based fighter patiently stalk and obliterate the challenger. She Godzilla'd poor Badillo. It was frightful and complete. Is there anyone in the flyweight division that can possibly compete with Fundora? Forget about the boasts of being the youngest undisputed champion. That's all based on politics and economics. Yes, Fundora has skill, but having a promoter like Golden Boy Promotions allowed her to get those world title fights. There are a lot of great fighters out there who have not lost in 10 or more years and don't receive world title opportunities. Luck is involved too, but Fundora is a great fighter and may be the best flyweight in history. Who can compete with her? Let's take a look at the other flyweights. Out of a list of 10 top flyweights listed by a certain website, Fundora has already obliterated 2 of them, who are both from Mexico. One is former champion Arely Musinho, and the other is Badillo. There are other flyweights like Angelica Lucas, who fights out of Kazakhstan but has mainly fought in Thailand and Turkey. The fighter with fashion model looks has beaten some solid fighters like Johanna Zuniga, Deborah Ana E. Lopez, and Anna Arizola. Is she ready for Fundora? Another top flyweight is Canada's own Alexis Kubitsky. She has 2 wins over Mexico's Isabel Milan and a win over Maria Salinas. She also has fought overseas in the Czech Republic, Kosovo, and Colombia. That's great experience. Colombia's Laura Wollenman, 11-1 with 3 knockouts, lost her first pro fight by split decision, but has not lost since, now 34. The Swiss resident deserves a shot at the flyweight world title before she gets too old. Ironically, the one flyweight not listed in anyone's top 10 is Mexico's Kenya Enriquez. Though Tijuana's Enriquez has not lost a fight in over 10 years and was listed as the top contender by most websites and sanctioning bodies, no one speaks her name. Enriquez still remains the best fighter without a world title. I was told by a source who wishes to remain nameless that Enriquez was offered as a possible opponent for Fundora, but whose team opted to instead face Chile's Daniela Asenjo. Though that fight was competitive, I wonder if Enriquez would have been too tough and too experienced for Fundora last summer. But where is Enriquez? Probably the biggest obstacle for Fundora is making weight. Though she claims making the 112-pound limit is not too tough, it's easy to imagine her moving up to 115 or 118 and still remaining dominant. We'll see what's next, whether I go up or down in weight, but I'm ready to collect more belts in other divisions, said Fundora. Right now, Fundora looks unbeatable at 112. It's a legitimate question, given what Gabby has managed to accomplish at a very young age. Is she, in fact, the best flyweight the division has ever seen? I would go as far as saying yes. Because all four sanctioning bodies having titles in circulation in the women's flyweight division is a relatively recent development. That wasn't always the case. Gabby is the first to unify them all. Gabby is the first to hold them all at the same time. And they weren't vacant when she won them. She won those titles from reigning champions, which solidifies that argument. Now, the fighters that the author mentioned, fighters like Angelica Lucas, Alexis Kubitsky, Laura Wollenman. Gabby can stick around long enough to defend her crown against all four of those aforementioned fighters. Don't forget about Kenya Enriquez. Yeah, she really is the best fighter without a world title. You could give Gabby Fundora decent odds to beat Angelica Lucas, to beat Alexis Kubitsky, and Laura Wollenman. I would say that the best fight to make, the two best fighters. Because here's the thing about those other girls. Their quality of competition is not on par with Gabby's. Gabby has knocked out two reigning champions in Arely Musinho and Gabriella Alaniz. Knocked out a standout amateur, then unbeaten, Cristina Cruz. And knocked out a then unbeaten top contender in Mariling Badillo. When you compare Gabby's body of work at this weight to theirs, there is no comparison. Gabby's quality of competition is head and shoulders above theirs. And the only fighter left at this weight that I think could theoretically give Gabby a run for her money is Kenya Enriquez. But even Kenya's resume pales in comparison to Gabby's. Now, the author of the article, David Avila, cites economics and politics, having a good promoter behind Gabby as the reason for her becoming an undisputed champion. But all that really does is get you through the door. That doesn't win you the fight. The fights. I mean, look at Ramla Ali when she was with Matchroom. Matchroom managed to get her a title shot at Yemi Mercado, but just being with Matchroom wasn't enough for her to win the fight. Well, look at what just happened to Sky Nicholson with Tiara Brown. Being with Matchroom got her to the title, but it wasn't enough for her to beat Tiara. So when I look over at Gabby and how dominant she is, I think it's an unfair critique to equate all of her success to politics, economics, and having a good promoter. Those things will get you the opportunity, but they won't win you the fight. You gotta do that on your own. So I am of the opinion that Gabby Fundora is by and large the most dominant flyweight this division has ever seen until further notice, until somebody can duplicate all the success that she's had. In men's heavyweight news, Alexander Usyk pokes fun at Brazilian Ronaldo when discussing life after boxing. While there is very little left for him to achieve, the ambition to become a three-time undisputed champion nonetheless weighs heavily on Alexander Usyk's mind. After amassing all the jewelry down at Cruiser, the masterful tactician replicated his feat, this time in the land of the Giants, with a split decision win over Tyson Fury last year. Once again, Usyk, 23-0 with 14 KOs, did the business in their rematch last December, before leaving the future of his illustrious career in the balance. But even with his many accolades, both as an amateur and a professional, the 38-year-old remains eager to further enhance his already decorated legacy in a bid to reclaim his IBF title, which he relinquished shortly after outpointing Fury the first time around. Usyk will lock horns with Daniel Dubois at Wembley Stadium in London, July 19th, to finish what is perceived as their unfinished business. The pair squared off back in 2023 when the Ukrainian utilized his superior footwork and ring IQ to retain his belts with a comprehensive 9th-round stoppage victory. Yet still, Dubois, 22-2 with 21 knockouts, seemingly remains convinced that the shot he landed in the 5th round of their encounter, which the referee deemed a low blow, was instead a legal right hand to the body. But regardless of that, Usyk is determined to remove any doubt over his dominance in this era, as with 2 victories over Dubois, Fury, and Anthony Joshua respectively, there would be no denying that he is the greatest heavyweight of his generation. When asked about his remarkable longevity in the sport, the cat kept it simple, while at the same time putting his typically lighthearted sense of humor on display. "I live a healthy lifestyle. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't go clubbing," Usyk told Boxing News. "In my free time, I like to spend it with my family, playing football, and probably making my wife angry by breaking something in the house." More than anything, the Olympic gold medalist looks forward to enjoying a flourishing life outside of the ring. After hanging up the gloves, he has plans to amplify the boxing scene in Ukraine while also assisting the exciting career of Daniel Lepine, a light heavyweight prospect and close member of his team. So there's your answer as to why Usyk shows so much consistency over such a long period of time as an amateur, as a professional, as a cruiserweight, and a heavyweight. Clean living. That's the common denominator between some of the more dominant athletes this sport has ever seen, whether you're talking about Floyd Mayweather or Andre Ward. No drinking, no smoking, no clubbing. Nada. None of it. Remembering Bernard Hopkins and why he was able to last so long. Same deal, same reason. Usyk recognizes that, unlike Brazilian football legend Ronaldo, he must continue to train and look after his body. 23 years I work, Usyk added during the media roundtable. For example, Ronaldo was a good player, fast, good dribbling, skinny guy. Then he stops football and becomes a big man. I want to live long. I want to build Ukrainian school of boxing. I'm taking care of my health to live a happy life and not to be so disabled. Boxing is a jealous sport. You hear it all the time, and what you're doing away from the ring shows up in it. Fighters like Adrian Bronor and Errol Spence Jr. almost immediately come to mind. Those burnouts. Now, they accomplished a thing or two before they burned out, but just imagine how much more they would have accomplished if they weren't drinking and they weren't smoking, if they were living the life. Just imagine, so that if Alexander Usyk is still here at 38 years old and still the betting favorite over the bigger, younger man in Daniel Dubois, that consistency, that's why. He's only got 2 fights left, according to him. The Daniel Dubois fight and maybe a trilogy with Tyson Fury. This obstacle and this new and improved Daniel Dubois, if Usyk can beat him for a second time, he stands a strong chance of leaving the sport with his unblemished record intact, which is not an easy feat. Not easy to do. Very few boxers are going to leave the sport unbeaten. Usyk might. And if he does, he will have done so facing the very best fighters that were available, the very best of the best that were around, not shying away from challenges. Just 2 more to go. 2 more fights and he's done. 2 more fights and he can call it a career. Will Usyk walk away from the sport unbeaten? Only time will tell. His old buddy Daniel Dubois squashes illness concerns ahead of that Usyk rematch. Daniel Dubois insists that his home advantage over heavyweight king Alexander Usyk will make all the difference, not just in the ring, but also from a medical perspective. The pair locked horns in a largely one-sided encounter back in 2023, with Usyk drawing upon his greater experience and technical prowess to secure a 9th-round stoppage win. Since then, Dubois has claimed that the low blow ruled against him in the 5th round of their clash was instead a legal body shot. Regardless of the truth, the 27-year-old will be presented with an opportunity to exact his revenge when they square off at Wembley, July 19th. Dubois has enjoyed a tremendous run of form following his second professional blemish with stoppage wins over Jarrell Miller, Filip Hrgovic, and Anthony Joshua, all rebuilding his confidence. Dynamite then looked to extend his ruthless surge in a mouth-watering clash with Joseph Parker, one of the leading heavyweight contenders this past February. However, an illness during fight week ultimately forced him to pull out of their contest, leaving Parker to take care of business against Martin Bakole instead. Shortly after, Dubois' head coach, Don Charles, told Boxing News that the ferocious puncher had suffered swollen glands before his fights with Usyk and Hrgovic too, and despite the fact that he had his tonsils removed a year ago, it seems to be a recurring theme for the Londoner to experience a dry throat. You believe that? I'm sure that Daniel had his tonsils removed a year ago, and I'm sure that from time to time he may experience dry throat, but I don't think that's the real reason they pulled out of the Parker fight. Never have. Now, you can say that why would they have gone along with it all the way up until fight week? Why would they have done that? Why sign on altogether? Then why even take the Parker fight? Their explanation is Daniel became ill at the last minute. But I don't buy that. I believe that at the last minute they realized fighting Joseph Parker, you're rolling the dice. So for rolling the dice, roll them with Usyk, who is free. You can do the rematch, and there will be more at stake. More money, more belts, more everything. Using the controversy from your initial meeting to sell a second one.
I know he can hurt him. I know that Usyk, who I've got great admiration for, he's beaten every British fighter that he's been in with. But I believe that he has weaknesses, and it was nearly exploited in that first fight. I mean, that's the punch I always felt would give him problems. So Daniel knows what he's got to do in this next fight, and it's going to be a great fight. And as I said, it's historical because of the belts and so forth. And if he comes through that, how bad is that? 48 years I've been doing this now. I mean, for him to come through and do that, heavyweight champion, and I've looked after a few British heavyweight world champions, but I think that would be something special. The first guy to hold the 4 belts, that's historical.
The speed at which they were able to put this rematch together, for me, is the giveaway that Daniel wasn't really sick. He just didn't want to roll the dice with Joseph Parker. You hear a lot about the run of form that Daniel is on, but also consider the run of form that Joseph is on. You fight Joseph Parker in Saudi, and that's not as big a fight as an Usyk rematch would be. And you fight Joseph in Saudi, you don't have home field advantage in Saudi, but you do have it in London at Wembley as the house fighter in what is a Queensberry Promotions show. Ahead of his rematch with Usyk, Dubois insists that any medical issues, should they resurface, would be promptly addressed. It's going to be on home turf now, so we're going to have all the right medical people around us, he told Boxing News. This suits us better, and the swollen glands won't be a problem at all.
Yeah, I'll bet they won't.
Won't be a problem for this fight. It's been a problem for me, but I think I'm getting on top of it.
Bottom line, I think that Daniel swerved Joseph Parker because it was more trouble than it was worth, riskier than it was worth, at a time when Usyk was available for a rematch, another undisputed title fight. They made an executive decision.
Now, I don't know that you could call that a categorical duck, because the rule of thumb with a duck is you exit a difficult fight for an easier one. Is Usyk an easier fight than Joseph?
No, but it pays better.
I don't know that we can consider this a categorical duck, and according to Hoyle, duck. But what I do believe is Daniel wasn't sick. They pulled out of the Parker fight. They sacrificed that one for a second crack at the apple with Usyk.
But this fight coming together doesn't all boil down to Daniel.
For all of their efforts to make Usyk seem like a cheater, make it seem like he made off like a bandit, the only reason we're here now is because Usyk wants to be here now.
This rematch is only happening because he wants it to happen.
He could have fought Joseph Parker. That's his mandatory challenger. And that fight would have been perfectly permissible. He chose to fight Daniel again.
Doesn't all boil down to Danny and Frank.
No, I don't think Daniel Dubois will experience any medical issues ahead of the Alexander Usyk rematch.
His approach.
Well, he is on a great run of form as of late, but as far as his approach, it doesn't seem to have changed much to me. I mean, what are you going to do differently in the second fight that you didn't already try in the first? You tried to knock him out. Now, you're going to try to do the same thing.
Well, how is that different?
Suppose the difference is this fight will be in Daniel's neck of the woods, whereas the first time out, they fought in neutral terrain. They fought in Poland.
Well, let's see if that makes all the difference for Daniel.